Hello everyone, this is Blackcell again, and today I'll be doing a quick tanking guide for the Paladin on the PlayStation 4. And I'm going to start off with the number one thing to do when you're in a dungeon is make sure you have Iron Will turned on. That is your tanking skill, and that is what makes all the other bad guys want to attack you instead of your party members. So one of the purposes of your damage rotation for the tank is to build your oath gauge. The oath gauge allows you to use shields or skills like shell drawn, and your other skills, say like intervention, and of course cover. So to begin, the first single target DPS rotation that you have is Fast Blade, Riot Blade, and Royal Authority. Fast Blade does damage, Riot Blade does damage and restores MP, and Royal Authority does damage and it increases your Sword Oath. Outside of using Royal Authority, the only other way to get Oath back into your Oath gauge is through your character's auto attacks. Now you've also got a third option for your rotation, which would be Fast Blade, Riot Blade, and then Goring Blade. Goring Blade applies a 20-second dot to your target and is generally used when you're doing your opener for a boss fight. Now your AoE rotation are only two skills. You have Total Eclipse, which does AoE damage around your character, and then you have the skill Prominence, which also does AoE damage around your character and restores MP. You have a similar dot to be able to apply onto your enemies as an AoE, which is called Circle of Scorn. This one only lasts for, looks like 15 seconds. So if you're doing your AoE trash pulls, it's pretty simple. Total Eclipse, Prominence, and drop a Circle of Scorn. Another skill that you'll have access to in later levels is going to be Confettier. You can only use this if you use the skill Requisite first, and it allows you to activate Confettier, which is similarly a AoE around your character. It's pretty potent. You have another skill called Holy Circle. It's a ranged DPS skill. I almost never use this because it's a kind of a waste of your MP. At lower levels you can use it, but generally as a ranged skill I just use Shield Lob. If I have to move out of AoE but keep a boss on me, I just attack them with Shield Lob. It's good enough to keep the boss attacking you, because as a tank, your main job is to keep the bad guys hitting you and not your party members. Another one of your skills for DPS is a single target skill called Spirits Within. It's relatively potent for a tank skill. It does 350 potency if you are at 100% MP, and the less health you have, the less damage that you do. Tanks have access to two interrupts, or specifically just the Paladin. You have the one that everyone gets called Low Blow, and you have one that's specific to the Paladin called Shield Bash. Shield Bash is pretty cool that you can actually sit here and repeatedly interrupt stuff. But the problem with it is on your GCD, as you can see, which is your global cooldown. And also, if you are in the middle of a combo and you find yourself having to use Shield Bash, it interrupts your combo and you have to start all the way over. And as you can see, you can interrupt too many times. You get 3 chances of interrupt, and then after that your target becomes immune to the interrupted status effect. Now we've gone over most of the DPS skills. I skipped one, Fight or Flight. This is good to use just before a pull. If you're going to pull trash, what it does is it gives you 21 seconds of increased damage output. Now your primary shield or your primary tank skill that you get is going to be Rampart. It grants you damage mitigation for the longest amount of time of all of your tank skills. You use this just before any pull, or if you're doing super pulls you can hold off for a few seconds, but this is what you're going to want to have on pretty much at all times. Anytime that the Rampart procs and you're in combat, you're going to want to have Rampart turned on. Now it's on a cooldown, as you can see. I've got, what, 73 seconds left. Some of the other skills you can use to fill in the gaps are going to be Sentinel, Passage of Arms, Rampart, Reprisal, Arm's Length, and Clemency. Now, some of these skills you usually don't use in basic trash pulls, like Passage of Arms, and not many people use Shell Drawn either with doing your trash pulls. But the beauty of Shell Drawn, you can actually use it to fill in the gaps. So if you decide, or if you, once your Rampart runs out, and if there's still plenty of ads or mob or enemies to fight, you can use Reprisal. And what this does, it gives you 10 seconds of reduced damage output by all enemies affected. So it's basically an AoE that reduces your enemy's damage output. You can also use Arm's Length right afterwards to continue to reduce it. It gives you 6 seconds of damage mitigation by every single enemy that hits you that can be affected with slow is affected with slow. And if you're still waiting for your Rampart to return, you can use your Shell Drawn to fill in the gaps. Shell Drawn is also one of your most potent defensive cooldowns, and you generally use this for massive damage incoming, like your tank busters and such. Shell Drawn is one of my favorite skills. That mixed with Sentinel. Sentinel does the same thing, but Sentinel gives a huge amount of damage mitigation, and I almost always save this for massive trash pulls. Like if I had double or triple mobs, I'll use that, and I'll also use Sentinel whenever I see an incoming tank buster. Now, Passage of Arms is meant and designed for you to protect your party and mitigate the damage, incoming damage to your party members that stand behind you in a cone. This is generally used for the shared AoE damage from boss fights, which people pop up with the indicators. You'll stand in front of your party, it's pretty obvious. You can, in emergencies, actually use this if you're pulling a huge trash mob and all of your other damage mitigation skills are used up or off their cooldowns. You can actually use Passage of Arms to help protect yourself as well. Now, your character is unable to move or take any action while using Passage of Arms. So as you try to start moving around, it'll automatically cancel the skill. Divine Veil is a good party mitigation skill. It casts Divine Veil on yourself, and it stays on you and does nothing until you are either healed by a party member or by yourself. And this doesn't directly mitigate damage for you at all. What it does is it applies a shield or a damage shield to all the party members around you. Intervention, the skill there on the right, is a shield that you can apply to a single party member, and its potency is increased up to 50% if you have either Rampart or Sentinel active at the time. So if you have a team member that's about to take a massive amount of damage because he can't get out of an AoE fast enough, you scroll down, highlight their name, hit them with an intervention, and now they've got a 50 potency shield to them. One of the #1 skills for the Paladin tank is Hollowed Ground. It basically makes you invincible. I've used this many times to save myself and other party members. I have actually had situations where the entire group is dead except for me and the healer doesn't quite have enough to either heal me back up, or they're in the middle of trying to raise another party member and we're about to get hit with a room-wide AoE. You can actually pop Hollowed Ground, effectively making yourself invincible, and then use the skill called Cover on that healer, and now both you and the healer are immune to all incoming damage, unless of course it's a one-shot mechanic. Those are unavoidable. And then lastly, we have Provoke and Shirk. Provoke simply puts you at the top of the hate list for whatever enemy you use it on. So if you have a Deeps or a healer that pulled off of you, and say I'm standing here fighting a mob, and it's got this one little guy over here that's annoying fighting someone else, you provoke them, which will immediately put you at the top of their list. Then you have to follow it up with another attack, because you want to stay attacking you. So if a Deeps has pulled off that enemy and you hit him with Provoke and the Deeps attacks him again, he will immediately attack the Deeps again. So to avoid that from happening, you want to at least hit them with the shield lob before they start attacking the other guy again. The Shirk is used for tank swaps. It is what you use to drop your hate and shift it over to another tank. So if you're fighting a boss, you have 4 or 5 stacks of vulnerability, whatever the reason, whatever the mechanic is that you need to do a tank swap on, you actually go in, you could temporarily turn Iron Will off, and you can shirk the other tank to give them all your hate, and once they pick up the hate, turn Iron Will back on, because you don't want to forget about it if there's another tank swap coming up, and then go back to work. As a general tip with all tanking, I always try to keep the similar skills in the same general area. So you can see my single target DPS rotation skills are pretty much all in the same area. They all use my X, square, and circle. Even on my L2 bar, I have X, square, and circle. And then all my AoEs I try to keep in the same general area too. Even on my off bars. And you'll see that I have the same thing here with low blow and shield bash. My 2 stuns are on the same D-pad button. Sometimes I have to make a few exceptions, like Holy Circle, and the other skill I didn't really talk about, which is Atonement, but it's because I never really use it. Atonement is, it can actually be used to start generating your NP back as well. And this one you can actually spam it because you get stacks. If you need to actually generate NP quickly, go through your full rotation to Royal Authority, and you can spam the mess out of Atonement. So for a quick recap, always keep Rampart active at all times. When Rampart expires, you're going to want to shift into Reprisal, and then follow it up with Arm's Length once Reprisal has expired. Once Reprisal expired, you should have a shell drawn, and you'll use that one, and at least save 50% if you're close to a tank, or if you're close to a boss fight, so you don't start a boss fight with no shell drawn active. Use Sentinels in emergencies if you're on a trash pull or just before a tank buster. Also, shell drawns always use for a tank buster as well. Now, just as a note, intervention and cover both use your oath also. So it's always a good idea if you're in the middle of a big boss fight, try to save at least 50 oath at all times to be able to use cover or intervention in case of an emergency. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Black Sail's quick PlayStation 4 tank guide for the Paladin.